Hey guys, Matthew. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the fourth update of the project Predicting Profitability. Now, I'm super excited to say that after this update, I'm finally going to be looking into implementing all this data into the actual Casual Exile document. So you're finally going to be able to see in live updates of the actual profitability, or at least the net income of each of the mechanics on a per mechanic and per map basis. So definitely going to be looking into that after this video. Not sure how complicated it's going to be and how quick I'll be able to actually implement everything, but I'm officially going to be looking into that because the actual progress of this project has been going crazy fast to the point where there's honestly not all that much left to test, which is good because it means that I'm probably going to be able to actually test more things than I initially had in my scope of testing things because it's just going really quickly and really well, especially due to the help from community members, which I'm super grateful for. So let's get into the data of the new stuff. So the first thing that's new today is the Cartographer's Daily Orb that was tested. Now, the Cartographer's Daily Orb is actually a pretty expensive one, and after 50 orbs worth of testing, I thought the data was a little bit weird, so I asked my runner to do an extra 50, which netted us a total of 1,136 layers of rewards over the course of 100 Daily Orbs. So as you can see, he's getting roughly 11 bars of loot per orb per map, which is pretty average. Like it means that he's not giga juicing his maps. He's not using the Sextant for like double the rewards or anything like that. But he's also not doing like, you know, your little tiny Alkengo strategy. Not that that matters because our calculations are on a per layers of rewards. So looking at the actual stuff that he got nearly 400 Awakened Sextants, 550 Chisels, then a little bit of T14 and T15 maps, which I put at a static price of 1C and 2C respectively. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, well, you're never going to be able to sell T14 maps, and I kind of want to agree with that. But the reason why I put these static values is because I put T16s at 3C, which is an undervalue for a lot of the better maps that you're gonna drop, like because it does seem that for some reason, and I was not aware of that, the actual rewards from the Cartography Daily Orb does respect your actual Atlas passive, or not passive, but your actual Atlas preferred maps, which means that you can target farm, if you will, specific maps which are more valuable. So in some cases, some of the better maps like Toxic Sewers are like 4.5 to 5C each even. So these numbers I think are just going to be a pretty good average. And they're also going to be good for early game. Obviously, we'll be changing these static values in the league start scenario when T14 maps are potentially multiple chaos and T16s are far more than 3 chaos. But otherwise, he got 32 Conqueror maps, which is a total of 8 Conqueror sets, which we are going to price using TFT, which is currently has a bit of an issue there. So it's currently being priced at the actual ninja price, if you will, of Conqueror maps, which is 29C, but you would get more out of it if you're sold in the sets. We're doing the same thing with Elder maps, 5.5 sets, and the same thing with Shaper sets with 8 sets there. Now, it could have been probably 8 Elder sets and 5.5 Shaper sets. I might just go ahead and equalize this data a little bit, but it does seem, which is kind of weird, that you're dropping as many Conquerors maps than any of the other Guardian maps, which is not the case with the Atlas or the regular game. Those are a little bit more rare, it seems. So there's something going on there, and maybe that's because, like I was saying, it doesn't get affected by your Atlas passives. So maybe the Conqueror maps have the same drop chance of any other Guardian maps when unaffected by anything else. So that could explain this little bit of discrepancy here. But anyways, so looking at the data, we're looking at about 4 chaos per actual daily reward. So 4 chaos worth of value. So if you're getting, say, a regular map of roughly 11 bars of loot, you're looking at about 46 chaos income per map with current prices, which is not bad at all. Now, this does depend, of course, on the price of the Cartographer's Orb, but I think it's something like 40-45C, so you're basically breaking even from the orb itself, which means that everything else that is dropping outside of that is pure profit. Now, that's still not amazing, but the thing is, at this point in the league, that's going to be the case for most of the daily orbs, and the reason for that is because daily orbs right now are mostly being used for juicing, for the sake of just adding a lot more monsters to your map, not really for the sake of actually caring about the rewards from the daily orb itself, which causes them to be a lot more expensive than what's actually coming from them. A lot of the money that you'll make from daily orb is actually going to be earlier on in the league when people actually care about the rewards, and the price of the daily orb is based on the reward, not on the fact that it's used as a tool for juicing. Hopefully that makes sense. Next, we are looking at Fragmented. Now, definitely one of the worst in the game, and the main reason for that is because it pretty much only and exclusively drops sacrifice fragments, which are not worth anything at this point. 0.6 chaos there. Really, really bad. However, in a league start scenario, it's actually not that dire because sacrifice fragments, especially sold in sets, sell extremely well for 45 chaos for people who are farming normal Atziri. So in that regards, you would actually make a good chunk of money compared to what you can get out of them at this point. But yeah, that's that. Now, next we're looking at Whispering, which is for essences. Now, you'll see that everything has been converted into Shrieking, and the reason for that is because PoE Ninja kind of sucks at pricing Screaming Essences. It'll tell you that just about anything is worth a chaos, and then when you try to sell them, you'll never be able to sell them because they just aren't worth that much, right? And there's nobody willing to pay that much for the vast majority of the essences. So I converted them all into Shrieking for a total of 475 over the course of 599 layers of rewards, which amounts to about 1 chaos per bar per orb at the current market, at the current values. Now, note that I'm pretty confident that the Whispering Orb cannot drop you like Essence of Horror or anything like that, the same way that, say, the Blighted Orbs can't drop you silver or golden oils. It seems like some mechanics have some loot that the loot table is explicitly reserved to that mechanic when you're farming specifically for it. Like, for example, to get Essence of Horror, you'll want to do like essences, right? Or to get Blighted maps, you'll want to do Blight. And they were removed from a lot of the alternate methods of acquiring those resources previously. Okay, next we can look at Breach. So in a nutshell, when it comes to just Breach from the loot itself, it's actually very lackluster. So I did 200 maps with the Breaches, which was a total of 430 Breaches using the Polished Scarab and no other investment whatsoever other than, of course, the nodes on the tree. And that net me roughly 2.7 chaos of value per Breach, or roughly just shy of 6 chaos per map. Now, the Polished Scarab are only 1 chaos. So in reality, it's still like a 600% return of investment, which is not bad, but 5 chaos profit per map is just nothing to write home about. It's just not really worth the time. However, what we're going to do is we're going to pair these breaches with a Sextant, which is going to allow us to focus on specific breaches. And looking at that, in that regards, we can look at getting Chiulas. So if we were to run the Chiula Sextant, it's actually 26 chaos income per map, and this does include the drops that were, not from the actual Chiula itself. You can see the numbers in gray here are the ones that are actually coming from the Sextant, or at least from the breach stones that are specific to the actual Breach Lord. So 20 chaos worth of Chiula breach stones, or in fact splinters per map, on top of the regular stuff from all the other loot, makes up for about 26 chaos there on a map-to-map basis. So again, you're not going to make a ton of profit due to the fact that the Sextant is pretty expensive, but that is if you had 2 breaches per map, right? There are other ways that are very cheap, such as the map enchants from Id That Fled and I believe Fortification or Transportation that can net you as high as 5 extra breaches per map. So as you can see, you can actually get quite a bit of extra breaches. There's also a Sextant for an additional breach that's also very, very cheap. So there's ways that if you wanted to, you can push forward, because every additional breach with Chiula on top of the regular stuff from a breach to breach basis is worth roughly 12 chaos. So if you can get, say, 5 breaches per map, that is basically an income of 60 chaos. If you're investing only, say, 25 or 30 chaos to get all of those breaches in your map, you're basically doubling your money. But at this point, it's only 200% return of investment, but it's also an additional 30 chaos profit per map instead of 5. Right, so that's the way that you want to look at things. You don't want to just look at return on investment. You also want to look at PPT, or profit per trade, or in this case, PPM, profit per map. So Next, we have Expedition. Now, Expedition, probably currently one of the best ways to make currency in the game, both through farming it as a map mechanic or through farming the logbooks themselves as an endgame strategy. There is just ridiculous amounts of money to be made there. But looking at this, I did 199 expeditions, and this net me very few maps. It's not very good for map sustain. However, it's also not very good for just pure currency drop, only 30 chaos. But I dropped 56 expedition logbook. Now, to be completely transparent, this is using the rusted scarab with no sextant, right? I wasn't using the sextant or anything like that. Rusted scarab, Alcan Go. So I was not using altars, which can net you additional quantity, and the actual, not the logbook, sorry, but the expedition monsters and the explosions that you blow up, they do scale with pack size and quantity. So because I was using Alcan Go, most of my maps had somewhere around 100 quantity because I was using the nodes up here on the atlas, which gives you the effective modifiers on non-unique maps, which is essentially like a multiplier to your quant and pack size on your map. So you all can go up to around 75, and then by using all these nodes over here, you get roughly about 100 quantity per map, anywhere between 90 and 100% quant per map. And yeah, 56 logbooks. Now we took a bit of an algorithm looking at the drop rates of different logbooks and looking at the combinations, because 50% of logbooks drop with 2 mods, 50% of them drop with 3 mods out of a pool of 4 mods. So we had to come up with a bit of a smart algorithm. But looking at that, it seems that logbooks, every single logbook that you drop is on average 55C per map, and I dropped 56 in less than 200 maps. So it's more than every 4 maps, right? Every 3 to 4 maps you'll be dropping a logbook, which that alone is over 10 chaos profit per map, including the price of the scarab, which is very, very cheap, without accounting for anything else. Now, if we actually do account for all that other stuff, we are looking at roughly an income of 35 chaos per map, and the scarab being as cheap as it is, being about 3C for rusted, that's a total of a profit of about 30C per map. And this is considering that you are going to sell the actual currencies, right? You're not going to use the actual rerolls, you're going to sell them, which means all your artifacts are essentially worthless. Now, that's not really how it works, because if you're doing expedition, you want to use those reroll currencies, especially the things like the exotic coinages, and then you want to, even if you go a step further, and run the logbooks themselves as well, and then you want to use the artifacts through the rerolls, and you'll make a lot more currency that way. Looking at the artifacts, they essentially double the value of the actual drops. So if you were to like take all these reroll currencies and utilize them in order to make profit from them, except maybe the Astragallis, you would sell those. You can essentially just about double this number, which means that you'd be making somewhere around 65 to 70 chaos profit per map from expedition using nothing but a rusted scarab, which means every other map, or every 2 maps and a half, if you will, or 2 expeditions and a half, you are netting yourself an extra exalt in your pocket if you go through utilizing the reroll currencies and the artifacts, which is kind of insane. Going forward, we have some additional information for heist. Now, we already looked at the actual deception contracts in the previous one. In this case, we are going to be looking at lockpicking contracts. Actually, I don't remember if we did look at deception contracts. I don't think we did. So looking at deception contracts, over the course of 200 deception contracts, the net income per contract was roughly 21 chaos per contract, and these sell for, I believe, about 10 chaos each, so you're essentially doubling your money. A lot of that is going to come from just pure currency, like there's a lot of pure currency dropping in there, and also a ton of stacked decks, 840 stacked decks and 200 of them, which means, you know, more, on average, more than 4 stacked decks per contract, which is kind of crazy. But of course, a lot of other currencies as well, nearly 4 exalts, most of that coming from exalt shards from the Harbinger chest, so that's kind of what you're looking for. But I do think that way better than that. Now, of course, this doesn't include the reveals, and there is a value to the actual reveals from Gianna you get from farming deception contracts, which we can't really account for. But I do think that's way better is actually lockpicking. So lockpicking was actually 22 chaos per contract, which is roughly the same as, or just over, deception. However, the difference is that these contracts are only a few chaos. In bulk, like 3 to 4 chaos for lockpicking. So their profit margin, if you don't actually plan to farm blueprints is significantly higher. And the reason for that is because of the sheer amount of stuff that it drops. It drops a lot of different things, a lot of scarabs, a lot of just basic currencies, but also a lot of random drops. And I think that's where a lot of the money is actually going to come from. So over the course of 200 lockpicking, I valued the random drops, which I think are fairly consistent, at about 10x, which means every 20 contracts, you're going to make 1 exalt from an item which is considered random or not consistent, but that is pretty much consistently going to happen due to the nature of lockpicking contracts, giving you things like corrupted jewels, giving you things like fractured items, synthesized items, stuff like that. I think that it's very, very conservative to account for 1 exalt per 20 contract. Matter of fact, the guy who ran these 200 contracts, he made 40 exalts from multiple different synthesized and fractured items. So I do think that 10 is honestly a very good number to go with, and that is netting you, 22 chaos profit, or 22 chaos income per contract, which is just a lot considering how cheap lockpicking contracts are compared to deception contracts, which was definitely a bit of a surprise to me and to everyone else, I would imagine, except maybe the people who are used to farming heist. But that's pretty much it, all I have for this update. Now again, look forward to the Casual Exile document, as I'll be starting to implement the actual profitability and all of these values, as well as a rundown on additional information in the Casual Exile document. So that's going to be coming shortly. And another thing is going forward, so if you're wondering what's left to test, well, of course, there are still plenty of deadly orbs that we're going to be testing. There are still plenty of contract types that we're going to be testing. And the absolute mad lad, which is currently farming the contracts, has actually volunteered as tribute, and he's actually going to be also doing blueprints, or at least he thinks he's going to be doing it. Whether he burns out or not beforehand, we'll have to wait and see. But he's planning to do a couple hundred of each type of blueprints, or at least the better ones, like replicas and gems with like 4 reveals on each wings, or sorry, 4 wings revealed per blueprint, which is going to give us roughly 800 wings per like replica, and of course the other one being the alternate quality gems, and that should give us thousands, if you will, of different outcomes and potential rewards. So we should be able to build a relatively accurate representation of what to expect. Now, another thing is a community member known as Spicysushi, I'll link his Twitch in the description of the video, is currently running a lot of bosses. He's doing a test of 1,000 Eater of Worlds, and I've asked him to do 1,000 Searing Exarchs as well, and he's feeding us the data as part of his testing, and that is also going to be very good, because we can again build an accurate representation of what you can expect to make from these new bosses. And hopefully the community, as well as myself, can also do Cyrus and Maven before the league actually ends, hopefully around 1,000 of each of those, and that should give us a pretty good representation of what to expect from Cyrus and Maven, in terms of the awakened gems, in terms of their loot tables, in their weightings on their drops. And once all that is said and done, we are basically going to have solved, if you will, the entirety of the game, once we've done all the bosses, all the heist content, and everything else. So this project has definitely become a lot larger than I initially anticipated. So I want to say a huge thank you for everybody who has helped me so far, and who will keep helping me, or who will help me in the future with all of this data. Because obviously, if it was just me, this would have taken ages, and I can't even imagine with everything else which is going to be being included in the whole project. So as always, I do want to say a huge thank you to my supporters before I go, and that'll be Rascurl, Brandon, Welcome Back, Thomas, Nick, The Great Master, Alex, Tim, Mercury, Johnny, Nalvgar, Solomonk, Exo, Jero Costa, and Bizen, as well as, of course, anyone else who has supported me in the past, anyone else who wishes to remain anonymous. Hopefully you guys are still as hype as I am for this project, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.